Let's bring in Labor MP Ed Husic. He's the Shadow Minister for Industry and Innovation. Thanks very much for your time. First of all, the India ban. I know Michelle Rowland, I spoke to the member for Greenway a bit earlier in the week. Your electorate also has quite a large population of Australians of Indian heritage. How's the reaction been?
I think there's been a lot of anxiety, clearly, by people who've been affected by this, who know family and friends that have been affected by this and are staggered that this type of decision could be made where they're targeted in a way that when people from the UK or the US wanted to come here weren't treated in similar ways. And I've got to say, Kieran, I think the Prime Minister owes an apology to Indian Australians. One, for treating them so shabbily on this issue, and two, more importantly, an apology to Indian Australians and the rest of the country that he has comprehensively stuffed up the whole process of quarantine, refused to accept responsibility for it, had his own MPs blame states when there have been problems with quarantine, but never been there to actually step up and do the job properly that he's required to under the Constitution. So, frankly, it's time for him to do that. And now what we're seeing today, him trying to blame the media. I mean, this bloke has a pattern. Every time his back's up against the wall, he seeks to blame someone else for stuff that he's responsible for. And you saw it, during the last few weeks when he tried to blame News Corp for certain things or suggest certain things were happening within your organisation that turned out patently wrong, and he had to apologise for it. And now he's trying to blame the media for the suggestions around the fines on this, when it was clear that Greg Hunt was pumping up the tyres on this proposition in his first media release on it.
If Labor was in government, would you be flying those Australians back from India? Is that what would be happening? How would Labor be responding?
Okay, so that's a big hypothetical, Kieran, but I would want, and I would expect a government of which I was a part, if we were in office at that point in time, to apply energy to this matter, to work cooperatively with the states on quarantining so we didn't have the backlog. If we did get into this situation, prioritise vulnerable people that were in harm's way in India. It's clear you can't get 9,000 people overnight, and I accept that, and I think there is people would appreciate it, but we shouldn't have got to this point, Kieran, when 9,000 were there, when the Prime Minister said last year, remember what he said? He said last year, no stranded Aussies by Christmas. Didn't happen.
When you say the Prime Minister should apologise, he says that his response has been to protect those in Australia from another wave, and that they wanted to take a bit of pressure out of the system, the quarantine system. When you say he should apologise, specifically, can you elaborate on that? Is it? Do you think there's racism involved here?
Well, no. I would like to ask. Well, I mean, there are a lot of people who have felt this. A lot of people who felt, particularly Indian Australians, that they've been treated in a racist way. They feel that because of the double standard, no doubt, that has existed. When, as I said earlier in our discussion, you look what happened in the US. When cases were rampaging, we didn't do this to anyone in such a public way, and then suggest we'd fine them if they came here. Came back here, Australians that have been over there. It certainly didn't happen in terms of the UK. We had processes in place. And I absolutely stand by. I mean, I will more than happy cop any criticism from Conservatives on this, but frankly, they stuffed up on quarantine. They didn't have the measures in place, and then they singled out Indian Australians on this, and we left our own people high and dry, Kieran. We left them high and dry, and vulnerable Australians too, and said, we're shutting the door on you and you're on your own. That is not who we are. We are better than this, Kieran. We should have done better than turn our back on fellow Australians.
Do you, on another matter, do you welcome the government's digital economic strategy? This seems like it's a broad-ranging approach from R&D to boosting skills. Is this a welcome initiative?
Well, we get this from them from time to time, right? We get a big flourish and a spate of announcements about what they're going to do in this area. Then it dies off and they have to be goaded to do it again. I think the consistency here is they're always late, they're always underdone, and they're always overhyping. We've had the Prime Minister today talk up the benefits of digital transformation to businesses, yet this is a Prime Minister whose government couldn't even get a COVID-safe app to work properly. And when they did go to get that app done, Kieran, they turned to overseas providers to get the job done instead of locals. So and we also can't have a situation where the Prime Minister is spruiking and saying that businesses, can digitally transform the way they operate by using Uber Eats or Airtasker, and say, we can't have the Prime Minister be the cheerleader in chief for an app store. We need to develop this here. We have smart people in this country that are doing great work here that need to be celebrated and, more importantly, supported. Airtasker, who he mentioned, they got into a lot of grief because the government changed the ground rules on the R&D tax incentive that nearly squeezed out of existence Airtasker. So this government needs to be consistent on this, and they need to follow through, and it can't be just announcement driven.
Just quickly before you go, the CSIRO had data done for its data, some research done for Data 61 on digital innovation, and it's talking about a boost to the economy of $315 billion from digital innovation. Is that achievable? Is that realistic over the next decade?
Just to let you know, in respect of artificial intelligence, a lot of countries have invested and announced investments, major investments in this space, because depending on who you listen to, there's either a $15 trillion or $22 trillion economic uptick from this. The bulk of this is going to accrue to two nations, USA and China. And so we've been left behind because we've got still neighbours, despite what was announced today, Kieran, we still have neighbours in our region that are spending more than us on national investments in AI. So there is potential there to get it right. It's an important economic and national security imperative to get this right. But this is a government that's big on announcement and always stuffs up the delivery, mate.
Shadow Minister for Industry and Innovation, Ed Husic, thanks. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Good on you.